My name is Clara Bennett. I'm 36 years old. And the thing about finally walking away from your family is that people always imagine it happens loudly. They picture screaming, broken dishes, a final cruel sentence shouted across a room. But sometimes it happens in a restaurant filled with candlelight, steak knives, fake laughter, and people pretending they love each other because the waiter keeps refilling the water glasses. My father's retirement dinner was being held at an overpriced steakhouse downtown, the kind of place my sister Lisa loved because it made dysfunction look expensive. She had organized everything, of course. Digital invitations, a slideshow of Dad's career highlights, a customized cake with his company logo piped across the top like he was some beloved public figure instead of a man who barely knew how to say thank you. I almost didn't go. Then, a week earlier, while cleaning out my storage unit, I found an old framed photograph from my college graduation. Just me and Dad. His hand was on my shoulder. I was smiling like I believed that day meant something to him. Like maybe, for once, I wasn't the responsible daughter, the emergency contact. The one people called when bills were late and doors needed unlocking. Maybe I was just his daughter. So I brought the photo. I walked into that restaurant holding the frame against my chest, like a peace offering. Lisa was there with her polished smile. Greg was slouched beside his kids, who were buried in iPads. Mom was talking to one of Dad's old coworkers about kitchen renovations I had partially paid for. Uncle James sat with a glass of red wine, acting important, like he hadn't borrowed $5,000 from me until the end of the month, 3 years ago. Everyone looked normal. That was the cruelest part. I walked straight to Dad and handed him the frame. He looked at it for 1 second. Then he raised his eyes to mine and said, "You really think this is about you?" Something inside me went still. Not broken. Still. I nodded once, set the frame beside his glass of scotch, and walked out. No speech. No tears. No dramatic goodbye. I wasn't even halfway to my car when my phone rang. "Lisa," I answered. Her voice was sharp. "Why can't we access the retirement account?" I kept walking. He said it's not about me. Then I hung up. That account had been my responsibility for years. Dad gave me power of attorney when he started forgetting passwords, missing bills, and pretending pride could replace basic competence. I kept their mortgage from defaulting after Greg lost his job, twice. I covered Mom's prescriptions, Lisa's overdue cards, Uncle James's temporary disasters. Quietly. Always quietly. Because they liked me better quiet. 30 minutes before I walked into that restaurant, I had revoked their access. Passwords changed. PINs changed. Secondary authorization removed. New terms drafted. Legal. Clean. Final. An hour later, Mom was pounding on my front door like the house still belonged to her. I opened it and handed her an envelope. "Read it." She stared at me like I had slapped her. I closed the door. The text started within minutes. "This isn't cool. Uncle James, we need to talk. Lisa, are you really doing this to your own family?" I stared at that one for a long time. Because I had asked myself the same question for 10 years. When I paid debts that weren't mine. When I signed checks I couldn't afford. When I bailed Greg out and he didn't call me once sober. When Lisa smiled at family dinners while letting me quietly fund the life she bragged about online. They had roles for everyone. Dad was the legend. Mom was the martyr. Lisa was the golden daughter. Greg was the wounded son. And me? I was the dependable one. The wallet with a pulse. But that night, for the first time, I stopped confusing being needed with being loved. And once I stopped, there was no going back. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls. Most of them were from Lisa, a few from Greg, one from a number I didn't recognize. I listened to that one first. A calm, professional voice. A lawyer. He wanted to discuss the recent restriction of access to the retirement distribution. I didn't call him back. By 9 a.m., my inbox lit up with a notification from Dad's company benefits department. Someone had tried to reset the account using my credentials. I didn't need to guess who. Lisa had always believed confidence could substitute for permission, that if she sounded certain enough, doors would open. They used to. Not anymore. I had already changed everything. Every password, every backup question, every layer of access they didn't even know existed. Because the truth is, I didn't make that decision impulsively. That moment at the restaurant didn't break me, it clarified me. Later that afternoon, Greg showed up at my office. I saw him before he came in. I work in a glass building, floor-to-ceiling windows, no place to hide. He paced outside for a few minutes, working himself up, like he needed to rehearse concern. When he finally walked in, he wore the same leather jacket I bought him 2 years ago. Funny how people never return things they didn't earn. "We just want to talk," he said, like we were still siblings who checked in on each other instead of strangers tied together by obligation. "Then email me," I replied. His jaw tightened. "Come on, Clara. Face to face." "That part's over." He tried to pivot. Words like family, loyalty, misunderstanding. Words he had never used unless he needed something. I let him talk for a full minute. Then I said, "You still owe me $8,000. Silence. That did it. Not the betrayal, not the years, just the number. He left 10 minutes later, muttering something that sounded like a warning. "You're going to regret this." I didn't respond. Because regret implies doubt, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel any. By the time I got home that night, there was a note slipped under my door. Mom's handwriting. I recognized it instantly. No greeting, no emotion. Just a list. Groceries, prescriptions, HOA fees, Lisa's phone bill, Greg's car insurance, and something new, a Wine of the Month subscription. At the bottom, one sentence. "Are you really going to leave us like this?" I read it twice, then I folded it in half. "Yes," I said out loud. That night, I opened my laptop and started cutting cords. Not emotionally, financially. The Netflix account Greg had named something stupid years ago, gone. The Spotify family plan Lisa used for her kids, canceled. The second phone line I kept active for emergencies, disabled. Gas bill, water, internet, everything still tied to my name, gone. Each click felt strangely quiet. Not dramatic, not satisfying, just necessary. Like finally setting a bone that had been broken for years. Because the truth I hadn't wanted to admit was simple. They didn't see what I was doing as help. They saw it as baseline, expected, normal. And the moment I stopped, I became the problem. The silence lasted 2 days. That was the longest they had ever gone without reaching for me. I knew what it meant. They weren't processing. They were regrouping. Lisa's Facebook post turned first. Cryptic messages. When someone you love becomes a stranger with a wallet, some people need to remember who supported who. I didn't engage. Then came the message I didn't expect. A cousin I barely spoke to. "Hey, I heard something weird. Are you okay?" I stared at the screen. "What did you hear?" There was a pause, then, "That you stole from your dad's retirement account?" I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was predictable. They hadn't just reacted. They had rewritten the story. In their version, I wasn't the one who carried them for a decade. I was the unstable one, the selfish one, the daughter who snapped and turned on her own family for no reason. They forgot something important. I keep records. Every transfer, every invoice, every "just this once." Every message that started with, "I hate to ask, but..." So I started organizing. Not to defend myself, not yet, but because I knew where this was going. They would escalate. They always did. And right on schedule, my phone buzzed again. Dad. Voicemail. Short. Flat. "You made your point. Now grow up." I replayed it twice. Then I deleted it. Because I finally understood something I hadn't allowed myself to see before. It was never about misunderstanding. It was about entitlement. They didn't think I was hurt. They thought I was misbehaving, and they were waiting for me to come back into line. But I wasn't going to disappear. That would have been easier. Kinder, even. No, I wanted them to feel it. Every missed payment, every inconvenience, every moment where they reached for me and found nothing. By week 3, the tone shifted. The anger faded. The messages softened. Not sincere, strategic. Lisa sent me a video. my niece holding a crayon drawing. "We miss you, Aunt Clara." Her voice was small, rehearsed. I paused the video halfway through. In the reflection of the TV behind her, I could see Lisa crouched beside the camera. Prompting, guiding, manufacturing. 2 months ago, she told me not to come to her son's birthday, said I was too unpredictable. Now I was supposed to believe I mattered. I didn't respond. The next day, they came to my door. All of them. Mom, Lisa, Greg, Uncle James. Standing there like a performance. "We just want to talk," Mom said. I didn't invite them in. Lisa stepped forward, smile too wide. "This is all just a misunderstanding." Greg added, "We can move past this." Uncle James tried the wise tone. "Money complicates things." I let them talk. 5 full minutes. Then Lisa said it. "We all have our roles, Clara. You've always been the dependable one." There it was. Not apology, not regret. Expectation. I tilted my head. "What exactly does that mean?" She shrugged, like it was obvious. "You hold everything together." I felt something almost like relief. Because finally, they said it out loud. "No," I said quietly. I made it look like it wasn't falling apart. Then I closed the door, and for the first time in my life, I didn't open it again. That night, I sat at my desk and logged into an old account, a shared Dropbox I used years ago when I handled all their finances. It was all still there. Every invoice, every transfer, every confirmation, years of it. I spent 4 hours organizing everything, color-coded, labeled, precise. Then I created a new folder. Family Finance Transparency. I dragged everything into it. No commentary, no explanation, just facts. And then I shared the link. With all of them. No subject line, no message. Within 10 minutes, Lisa called. Then again. And again. Greg left a voicemail. "You think this is funny?" Uncle James texted. "We need to clean this up." I smiled, because that told me everything. They weren't ashamed. They were exposed. And exposure was something they had never learned how to survive. The invitation came 2 days later. From Uncle James. Subject line: "Let's talk like a family. Sunday, 3 p.m., his house." Casual, he said. No pressure. Just a chance to clear the air. I stared at the email longer than I expected to. Because for a split second, just a second, I almost believed it. Almost believed that maybe this was the part where people sat down, told the truth, apologized, and tried to fix what they broke. Then I remembered who I was dealing with. This wasn't a resolution. It was a setup. And I was done walking into rooms unprepared. So I replied with one word. Yes. Sunday afternoon, I parked across the street on purpose. Let them wonder. Let them feel a fraction of the uncertainty I had lived with for years. When I walked up to the house, the front door was already open. Of course it was. They were waiting. Inside, it looked exactly how I imagined. Mom on the couch, hands folded too neatly in her lap. Lisa hovering near the kitchen, smiling like she was hosting brunch. Greg leaning against the doorway, trying to look relaxed and failing. Uncle James in the center of it all, playing mediator. "Clara," he said, warm and rehearsed. "Glad you came." I didn't sit. Not yet. "We're here because we care," he continued. Lisa stepped in smoothly. "We've all made mistakes." There it was. Not "we hurt you." Not "we took advantage of you." Mistakes. Like forgetting to RSVP to a party. Greg chimed in. "This tension. It's not you. You don't hold grudges." I looked at him. "Did you pay back the one worth $4,300? His mouth closed. Hard. I finally sat down. Slowly. Deliberately. "I figured," I said, pulling out my phone. "Since we're being honest, we should be accurate too." And then I started reading. 10 years. Line by line. Transfers. Dates. Notes. Screenshots. "Just this once. Can you cover this? Don't tell Dad. Please, I'm desperate." The room shifted. You could feel it. like the air itself had gotten heavier. Lisa tried to interrupt twice. I didn't stop. I didn't raise my voice. I just kept going. Because for years, I had been quiet for their comfort. Now they were going to sit in the sound of it. When I finally paused, no one spoke. So I turned to Uncle James. "You still driving that Lexus?" He blinked. "What does that have to do with anything?" "You gave me the title as collateral for a loan I covered during your refinance." His face changed. Subtle, but unmistakable. "That was years ago," he said. "Yes," I replied. "And you've made 0 payments." Silence. "I transferred the title last week," I continued. "It's in my name now. Pickup is scheduled for Tuesday." Lisa stood up so fast her chair scraped the floor. "Are you serious right now?" she snapped. "You're repossessing family property?" I didn't even look at her. "Same goes for Dad's antique golf set," I added. "I had it appraised. It's being auctioned." Greg let out a short laugh. "You think you're some kind of boss now?" I met his eyes. "No," I said calmly. "I'm just done." I reached into my bag and pulled out a small flash drive. Dropped it onto the coffee table. A soft, almost harmless sound. "Everything's on there," I said. "Every receipt, every loan, every message." No one touched it. "Share it," I continued, "with whoever you've been telling your version to." Lisa's face had gone pale. Uncle James looked like he wanted to disappear. Greg clenched his jaw so tightly, I thought it might crack. I stood up. And for a moment, I thought that was it. That I would walk out, and this would be the last time I ever saw them together in one room. But then, Mom spoke. "You need help, Clara." Her voice was steady. "Careful." "Practiced." I turned slowly. "What?" "This obsession," she continued, "with control, with punishment. It's not healthy." I stared at her. "I've already spoken to a lawyer," she added. "We're considering filing for conservatorship." For a second, I thought I misheard her. Conservatorship. Legal control. Over me. Over my decisions. My finances. My life. Lisa nodded, like it made perfect sense. "You've been erratic," she said. "Vindictive." Greg crossed his arms. "You're not thinking straight." And just like that, it clicked. This wasn't about getting me back. This was about replacing me. If they couldn't control me emotionally, they would try to control me legally. I let out a slow breath. "I hope your lawyer is good," I said quietly. Mom frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," I replied, "you just made this official." I walked to the door, hand on the handle. Then I paused. Not for them, for me. "To be clear," I said without turning around, "this isn't revenge." Silence behind me. "This is accountability." And then I left. I didn't go home right away. I sat in my car for a long time. Hands on the steering wheel. Heart steady. Not racing. Not shaking. Just steady. Because for the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was ahead. By the time they were still arguing in that living room, still trying to decide what their next move should be, mine was already in motion. My lawyer had been preparing for this. For weeks. We filed the response the next morning. Not just a defense. A counterclaim. Financial exploitation. Fraudulent misrepresentation. Coercive control. We attached everything. The Dropbox. The messages. Even a screenshot Lisa had accidentally sent weeks earlier. Just say she's unstable enough. That'll scare her. That one? That was gold. By Tuesday morning, Uncle James's Lexus was gone. Tow truck at 9 a.m. sharp. Exactly as scheduled. He called me 6 times in 10 minutes. Voicemails that started angry and ended begging. I didn't answer. Because the version of me that used to pick up didn't exist anymore. By Thursday, everything started to crack. Not slowly. Not subtly. All at once. Lisa's joint account with Mom was frozen first. One flagged transaction was all it took. They had never removed me from the authorization chain. Not fully. Years of shortcuts, of assuming I'd always be there to fix things, had left traces. The bank saw unusual activity tied to my old credentials. They called me. I confirmed the hold. Just like that, their access stopped. That same night, Greg showed up at my building. He didn't get in. I live somewhere secure now. Keycards, front desk, cameras. The receptionist called me upstairs. "There's a man here asking for you," she said carefully. "He's upset." I looked out from the balcony. I could see him through the glass doors. Pacing. Hands in his hair. Loud enough that people were staring. "Call security," I said. By the time they came down, he was gone. Of course he was. Greg never stayed long enough to face consequences. The next morning, I mailed 3 identical letters. One to Mom. One to Lisa. One to Dad. Inside each envelope, one sentence. No more access granted. No explanation. No apology. No negotiation. Just truth. That weekend, they changed tactics again. Soft voices. Careful words. Lisa sent photos of the kids. "Dinner this week? No pressure." Mom left a voicemail. "We don't have to go to court, Clara. We can meet halfway." Dad sent an email. Short. Cold. "This is your last chance to fix things before they become permanent." I stared at that line for a long time, because he still didn't understand. This wasn't a phase. It wasn't anger. It was a decision. So I made it official. Monday morning, I had legal notices delivered to each of them. Cease and desist. Final financial separation. Any attempt to use my name, identity, or accounts. Legal action. Immediate. Greg tried to fight back online. Faced something vague about family betrayal and people who forget where they came from. It didn't last. I had already flagged previous harassment. By the end of the day, his account was temporarily suspended. They were running out of space to hide. And I wasn't done, because while they scrambled, trying to hold together lives that had always depended on me, I did something they never expected. I went quiet. Not defensive. Not reactive. Strategic. I reached out to people they had already tried to influence. Old family friends. Distant relatives. People who had only heard their version. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I just sent the link. Family finance transparency. And let the truth speak. The responses came faster than I expected. One cousin left a voicemail. "I had no idea, Clara. You don't owe them anything." Another message. "I'm sorry they did this to you." A third. "This explains everything." They had counted on one thing. That no one would look deeper. They were wrong. 2 weeks passed. Silence. Complete. No calls. No messages. No guilt. No manipulation. For the first time in over a decade, they had nothing left to take. I thought that was it. That maybe, finally, it was over. Then the letter came. Not from them. From the IRS. Routine audit. Triggered by an anonymous report. Undisclosed income. Fraudulent filings. I didn't even have to guess. Greg. He had said something like this once. Years ago. Half drunk. "If you ever turn on us, I can make things complicated." At the time, I dismissed it. I shouldn't have. Desperation makes people creative. But here's what he didn't know. I was already prepared. 2 months before I cut them off, I had hired a forensic accountant. Not because I expected this exact move, but because something in me knew. They wouldn't go quietly. Every record was clean. Every transfer documented. Every dollar accounted for. I sent everything to the IRS agent. Copied my lawyer. 4 days later, case closed. No issue. No penalty. No stain. But now I had proof. False reporting. Malicious intent. We filed immediately. Harassment. Defamation. Escalation. They had crossed into territory they couldn't walk back from. And then something unexpected happened. People started reaching out. Not to accuse. To apologize. Lisa's old college friend. Greg's ex. One of Dad's former coworkers. They had all heard the same story. That I forged documents. That I took advantage of Dad's health. That I became unstable. I sent them the folder. 10 minutes later, every single one came back with the same tone.
Shock. Regret.
Silence. Truth has a way of cutting through noise, even when it arrives late. And then, the last thing I expected. A letter.
Handwritten.
From Dad. Not an email. Not a voicemail. A letter. I sat at my kitchen table and opened it slowly. His handwriting was the same.
Sharp. Controlled.
He didn't apologize. Not exactly. He said he didn't agree with how I handled things. Said I embarrassed the family. Made things public. But then, at the very end, one line. You were right. I stopped breathing for a second. We treated you like a resource, not a daughter. I read it again. And again. Waiting for something to follow. Some excuse. Some condition. But there was nothing else. Just that. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel anything dramatic at all. Just closure. That night, I wrote one final email. To all of them. No threats. No legal language. No bitterness. I told them I forgave them. Not because they asked. Not because they deserved it. But because I was done carrying it. I told them I wouldn't respond again. No more conversations. No more negotiations. No more access. I wished them well. And then I sent it. Closed my laptop. And sat in the quiet. Real quiet. Not the kind filled with tension. The kind that doesn't ask anything from you. 6 months later, my life looks smaller.
Quieter. Simpler.
No shared accounts. No overlapping responsibilities. No emergency calls at 3 a.m. I moved. New place. No one has the address except 2 friends and my accountant. Not secrecy. Peace. The Lexus sold. I used the money to take a trip. Just me. Driving through the Pacific Northwest. No GPS. No schedule. Small towns. Empty roads. Silence that didn't feel heavy. I remembered who I was when I wasn't holding everyone else together. Last week, I ran into my cousin Amy at a coffee shop. She hugged me. Took a step back. You look different, she said. I feel different, I replied. She hesitated. Then told me Lisa had tried to send out a mass apology. Deleted it halfway through when no one responded. Greg? No one really knows. Last rumor, he moved in with a friend. Again. Uncle James sold his house. Quietly. No celebration. No announcement. As for Mom and Dad, still together. Still bitter. Still telling themselves a version of the story that lets them sleep at night. But here's the part no one talks about. I'm okay. Not surviving. Not coping. Okay. I sleep through the night. I check my phone without that tight feeling in my chest. I walk through my life without waiting for something to collapse. And a few days ago, I did something small. Something simple. I framed a new photo. Just me. Standing on a mountain. Wind in my hair. Smiling at nothing in particular. It sits on my shelf now. No expectations. No history. No weight. Just a moment that belongs entirely to me. And for the first time in a very long time, that's enough.